This is the second video of the series Up Close and Personal, where we'll be getting to know more about your favorite comic book heroes and villains. This video will be getting up close and personal with Black Bolt of the Inhumans. Black Bolt first appeared in the comics Fantastic Four number 45, December 1965. Black Bolt's primary superhuman ability is the power to harness electrons. The speech center of his brain contains a unique organic mechanism that is able to generate unknown particle that interacts with the electrons he absorbed to create certain phenomena that are determined by his mental control. After the detonation of the Terrigen bomb, Black Bolt's powers were greatly diminished. He has since recovered thanks to a bath in exogenically charged waters. Black Bolt wears a metallic fork-shaped antenna upon his brow that allows him to focus and channel his powers in a more direct and less destructive ways. This antenna monitors the speech centers of his brain and allows him to direct quantities of the unknown particles to create controlled phenomena such as enhancing his physical strength beyond his normal limits. He can also channel all the available energy he has into one arm for a single massively powerful punch called the Master Blow. The exertion from this, however, taxes his ability to employ the energy to its full power for a short time. Black Bolt can also direct the unknown particle outward without the use of his vocal cords. He can route the particles through his antenna over his arms and hands to create a small yet vastly powerful blast of concussive force, absorb and redirect vast quantities of energy. He can also form a field of highly active electrons around his body with the wave of his hand. This field can deflect projectiles with the mass of a meteor. Black Bolt can also create enough iteration between the electron and particle energies to generate fields solid enough for him to travel over. Black Bolt has shown numerous times that he has the ability to manipulate matter and energy to an unknown degree. He has shown the ability to transmute the elements, turn water into ice, create multiple toys out of thin air by rearranging molecules, if not particle structures. He has destroyed a solar flare powerful enough to annihilate the Earth and was able to block the powers of others through his abilities, in turn denying them access to their abilities. Black Bolt has a strong psychic resistance, as was evident where he was able to easily resist the mental abilities of his powerful brother Maximus and overwhelm him in psychic ability, often using it as a means to communicate with his wife Medusa as well. Black Bolt can also harness the unknown particles his brain generates to interact with electrons to create anti-gravitons that enables him to defy gravity. By emitting a jet of rapidly moving particle electron interaction byproduct while enveloped by anti-gravitons, Black Bolt has been shown to fly faster than hypersonic speeds for a period of 10 hours and to fly beyond escape velocity. The anti-gravitons fields also serves to protect Black Bolt for detrimental effects of rapid movement through the atmosphere, although it's not needed. Black Bolt's natural physiology grants him a number of superhuman physical attributes, but because of his genetic tampering at birth, Black Bolt's physical abilities are significantly superior to most other members of his race. Black Bolt, like all Inhumans, is superhumanly strong, physically superior to the finest human specimen and to some Inhumans under normal circumstances. He's able to lift a couple tons, however, he can augment his physical strength by changing the necessary particle energy through his body. His base strength level, while under these conditions, is at best undetermined. For a while, at his peak, he is listed at class 60. Black Bolt has been observed fighting opponents dynamically superior, matching them blow for blow, such as Thor, Gladiator, the Thane, and even the Incredible Hulk in hand-to-hand combat. The latter acknowledging him to be very close to him in strength. Blackwood can run and move at speeds that are beyond the natural physical limits of the finest human athletes. He has been able to catch direct miniature missiles even when attacked from below and unaware with ease, move at speed so great he is invisible to the human eye, move at such a speed he can travel vast distances before a human can finish processing a thought, and has been able to catch Quicksilver. Black Bolt's inhuman muscular generates less fatigue toxins than the muscular of a normal human. Even though the finest human athlete at his peak, he can exert himself for several days before the buildup of fatigue toxins in his blood begins to impair him. Black Bolt's body is incredibly resistant to all forms of physical damage. Black Bolt is resistant to great impact forces, such as falling from height of several stories that would severely injure or kill a human being unharmed. He has survived blows by beings with vast superhuman strength, such as the Hulk, Namor, Gladiator, and Thanos. Taken to extremes, when Black Bolt weathered a blast from his own T-bomb, which had killed Emperor Vulcan, destroyed a Shira space fleet, and ruptured the fabric of reality. He's capable of withstanding extreme temperatures such as cold in space or the heat from re-entry. Black Bolt can further bolster his durability by generating a force field to further increase considerably his invulnerability. Black Bolt's agility, balance, and bodily coordination are enhanced to levels that are far beyond the natural physical limits of the finest human. Black Bolt's reflexes are far beyond those of the finest human athlete. Black Bolt has a natural lifespan that is at least twice the average lifespan of a human being. Normally enhanced to the point where he can lift more than 5 tons, but he can amp his strength to superhuman classes between 75 to 100 tons range. Black Bolt is a member of the Inhumans, that's an offshoot of humanity that was genetically altered by the Kree centuries ago. The Inhumans kept themselves hidden from humanity in their city known as Aladdin, also known as the Great Refuge, out of fear for centuries, developing in a high technological society with a focus on genetics. With the discovery of the Terrigen Mist, the Inhumans would expose themselves to it in order to gain fantastic abilities. He was one of 2 children of Aegon and Rhaena. Black Bolt was born over 100 years ago. While most Inhumans are typically exposed to the Terrigen Mist after obtaining a degree of merit, Black Bolt was exposed to the mist while still in his mother's womb. After Black Bolt was born, Aegon began to run experiments on his son in order to learn how the mist affected him. They were surprised to find that he had an incredibly destructive voice that could not be controlled. When Bolt first cried, he caused an entire building to collapse, but saved himself from being crushed to death thanks to his control over electrons, creating a shield. Aegon realized that his son had to be isolated until such a time that he could control his powerful voice. This decision was also further decreed by the Genetics Council, who governed over the Inhumans. His brother was born to the name Maximus. Maximus' gifts were attuned to those of Black Bolt so that Black Bolt could, in normal circumstances, resist his control, and conversely, Black Bolt's voice in certain circumstances could unlock and expand Maximus' mind. This was kept secret from Black Bolt. Aegon was the head of the House of Aegon, who later became the royal family of the Inhumans. Black Bolt was a cousin to Medusa and her younger sister Crystal, as well as Gorgon, Krenak, and Triton. Medusa was betrothed to marry Black Bolt, who was slated to succeed the Inhuman throne, but due to Black Bolt's powerful, destructive voice, he was isolated from the rest of society for many years. Black Bolt remained in isolation until he reached the age of 19 and mastered the ability to remain silent. It was then he was able to physically introduce to his extended family. Jealous of his brother from the start, Maximus used a device to try and force Black Bolt to speak, hoping that the destructive power of his voice would eliminate any chance of Black Bolt succeeding as ruler of the Inhumans. However, Bolt's cousin came to his aid, stopping Maximus before he could succeed. As they grow older, Black Bolt and his brother Maximus shared a brotherly bond that slowly got soured with age, particularly with an awakening of Maximus' mental powers, giving him rudimentary mind control abilities. Later, Bolt discovered his brother attempting to ally himself with the Kree in order to take control of the Inhuman's throne. Confronting his brother, Black Bolt was forced to unleash his destructive voice to stop the Kree ship from escaping. This was a twofold tragedy, as the sound of Black Bolt's voice drove Maximus mad, and the crashing Kree ship slew their parents. Black Bolt befriended an alpha primitive named Alicia, who helped him and his cousins escape to New York when their king, the Unspoken, mistakenly believed them guilty of plotting treason. It was actually the Alpha Primitives in revolt, led by Alicia, who was a human turned into an Alpha Primitive by the slave engine. Returning to Adeline, Black Bolt pledged to free the Alphas when he became king. Alicia nevertheless went forward with his plan to use the slave engine against the Inhumans, but was defeated with the help of Maximus. The king offered his crown to Black Bolt, who at the time refused. However, later, when the young Inhuman warriors learned that their cousin and ruler had hidden the slave engine, the Inhumans' most powerful weapon, in order to usher in an age of peace, they boldly confronted him. This led to a battle between the king and Black Bolt. Because he was weakened from hiding the engine, the king was easily defeated in combat by Black Bolt. Medusa then witnessed as Black Bolt took him to the Himalayan mountains. Black Bolt disposed of the king by uttering his name, devastating him in a powerful sonic blast, leaving him for dead. This shameful chapter in the Inhumans' history was then covered up with Black Bolt's father apparently taking up leadership of the Inhumans. The former ruler was referred to only as the Unspoken. However, this event would have far-reaching consequences many years in the future. Subsequently, Black Bolt found himself in line for the Inhuman throne and ruled over the Inhumans for years. For years, Adeline resided in the northern Atlantic Ocean, but by the 1950s, the increasingly xenophobic Inhumans began to fear that the regular Inhumans would eventually encroach on their home. Black Bolt then ventured out from the hidden land to try and find a new location for their secret society. Bolt ended up crossing paths with Icarus, a member of the Eternals, another offshoot of humanity. Intrigued by Black Bolt's similarities to himself, Icarus took the Inhuman ruler to the Eternals' home of Olympia to meet their ruler, Zuras. There, Black Bolt was able to communicate his plight, and Zuras agreed to offer Eternals to help. Zuras then recommended that the Inhumans relocate to a remote region of the Himalayan mountains, clearing a path for the Inhumans to build. Black Bolt returned to his people with this news, which was met with mixed response. Initially, Black Bolt intended to rebuild Adeline, but upon hearing the cries of a young child, agreed to move the entire city. Although the Inhuman scientists baked at this idea, they eventually pulled the feet off and were assisted by the Eternals, who ensured that Adeline was delivered to its new location undetected. Due to his crimes against society, Maximus was locked away for years, but he eventually used his mental powers to coerce 3 of the Alpha Primitive slave class. He compelled them to expose themselves to the Terrigen Mist, transforming them into an entity known as Trichon. The Trichon then compelled the Alpha Primitives to revolt against their suppressors. During the ensuing uprising, Medusa attempted to confront the Trichon on a sky sled, but it blasted the ship, causing her to crash somewhere outside of the Great Refuge. The crash had stricken Medusa with amnesia, and she wandered away from the ensuing battle, which eventually ended, but with Maximus taking control of the Inhuman throne and exiling his cousins. Black Bolt and his family were forced out of Adeline and spent their ensuing years searching for signs that Medusa might be alive. A different account states that the danger posed to Adeline came from a conflict between the Chinese government and the people of Tibet. While trying to develop a means to hide their society from outsiders, Black Bolt was injured while testing out one of those devices created by Maximus. This account states that Crystal was already aware that the existence of the Fantastic Four prompted Medusa to leave the Great Refuge to seek them out for assistance, while Black Bolt recovered from his injuries. Left to the tyranny of Maximus, the royal family later fled to find Medusa after Black Bolt was well enough, and after hearing that Medusa had joined the ranks of the Frightful Four,